doing just fine. Thank you very much. Stay with us.
Who said that?
Join us this week for Beyond the Veil.
Come with us as we learn the do's and don'ts of bridal florals.
Mondays at 8:30 on Cable 14.
With clubs, leagues, and courts in every province and territory across Canada, squash is the sport for wall-to-wall fun, fitness, and friendship. From coast to coast to coast. Learn to play and you'll want to do it every day. Squash. Play inside the box.
Welcome back to Hamilton Life. Well, despite being described by some as spending 10 years drowning, can you imagine? Many people are able to maintain a good quality of life while living with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, otherwise known as COPD. And I have the proof right next to me. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
Barbara Moore, you are living with COPD.
I am living with COPD.
And November is National COPD Awareness Month, so I appreciate that you're here to discuss what COPD really is. Can you tell us what it is?
COPD is a chronic disease that gets progressively worse. It is an obstruction of the airflow in the lungs, which causes swelling and increased mucus with extreme shortness of breath.
So the lungs just can't even absorb the oxygen, is that right?
The lungs can't expel the oxygen, so oxygen is trapped within your lungs all the time. Oh. And until we can get the old air out, we can't get any fresh air in.
Wow.
So your lungs become inflated, overinflated, and it causes excessive shortness of breath.
So that is where that term of feeling like you're drowning comes from, is
yes.
that right?
That and the mucus production. The increased mucus production makes it extremely hard to breathe. So knowing how to control your breath and how to get your last breath out helps you to get your next breath in.
What causes it?
Well, 95% of the people who have COPD, it was caused by smoking. You know, in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, everybody smoked. Now we're seeing a decline in smoking, but an increase in vaping. And we also know that there are many other reasons other than smoking. Not everybody who smoked. In fact, only a third of people who smoked got COPD. Now we're finding that the increase in world pollution, using open fireplaces, industrial dust. The person who is most likely to have COPD is the waitresses who stood over us all the time while we were smoking.
In the non-smoking sections,
That's
even.
right. And the secretary who took care of the photocopier machine. We're always fanning the paper to get it to work in the copier machine. That leaves particles in the atmosphere, and we are inhaling those that are causing irritants in our lungs.
Wow.
So people think that the only way that you can get COPD is from smoking, but it's not true.
Well, I can imagine then that leads to people not taking whatever their symptoms are seriously, right? Because maybe they're not a smoker, but maybe they do these other things, but they don't put two and two together. What are the symptoms? How do you know it's time to get it looked at?
Well, you know, it's really funny because COPD is a progressive disease. So it progressively gets worse over time. At the very beginning of COPD, we notice a little bit of symptoms. We're not able to maybe exert as much, to exercise as much. We find that we're a little short of breath, and we put it down to, well, you know, that menopausal weight gain. And it's kind of easy to say, well, we'll just ignore the symptoms. I won't do that anymore. But it increasingly gets worse. And as it as it goes on, we can do less and less. And so what I found, I was hiding it for about 8 years, and then I couldn't keep up the charade any longer. I couldn't get to my doctor's office. I couldn't get from my car to my classroom where I was teaching. I just couldn't do it without having 2 or 3 places to sit and catch my breath.
And were you still smoking at the time?
Yes, I was smoking till I was diagnosed.
Wow.
And at that point, I could hardly breathe, but I was still smoking. Not very much, and I was only smoking about 3 a day, but I was not giving it up, and that's all there was to it. The way that we are diagnosed is with a spirometry test, and I was diagnosed at my request. My doctor didn't believe that there was anything wrong with me. And
So advocate for yourself.
yes, and I really put my foot down and said, no, I really want a lung function test. He was positive that I was trying to pull a fast one on the government or something. He didn't see any reason why I should have it. And this is a universal problem across our medical system, that doctors don't know enough about COPD, and there's not enough access to the spirometry tests.
Wow. Thank goodness you were diagnosed when you were.
Yes,
So obviously, the point of you being here today is to help us understand you can live well with COPD.
yes,
You're being treated with, I guess that's oxygen,
yes it is.
and that helps you breathe?
Yes, it does. What the oxygen does is it's actually to help my heart, because when your lungs don't function, your heart doesn't work well.
Huh.
And so I ended up having heart failure as a comorbidity of COPD.
And you do something called pulmonary rehab sessions.
Yes, we do. If you're lucky enough to have the funding and have a center that offers it close enough to you, your doctor will order it for you. The problem is that there's not enough rehab places. And with the pandemic came a lot of virtual rehab, which was excellent for people like me who don't like to go out and like to be in crowds. But the government has rescinded all of that funding.
But these sessions are what help you were explaining earlier, get the old air out so that you can get the new air in, right?
Yes. At rehab, they teach you to live a different life, because when you have COPD, nothing will be the same. Nothing will be the same after. And so you have to learn how to pace yourself. You have to learn how to breathe. You have to learn how to be mindful instead of multitasking all the time. So this is what rehab teaches you, how to do this and how to exercise and keep yourself well.
One of the ways you're keeping yourself well is the way you're paying it forward, because that is, I think, good for our health. Paying it forward. Tell me what you're doing.
It's excellent. When I was told that I had to quit work, I cried like a baby. I was at the general, and the doctor came in and he said, "It's just not going to be possible." And I cried and cried and cried and said, "I will not have any purpose in my life without my work." You know, my kids were all grown. I didn't have any grandchildren at the time. And my daughter said to me, "You know, there's not a lot of information." I said, "No, there isn't." She said, "You know, you need to help those people. You need to get out there and create a community." And so that's what I did. My handle is Catch Your Breath 60. We are constantly crying to let us stop and catch our breath. And I was 60 when I was diagnosed, so Catch Your Breath 60 it is. I have a blog. I am on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I'm also a lung ambassador, a patient lung ambassador for Lung Health Ontario, Lung Health Foundation, and we lobby the government, and we run a support group there.
Look at you go. I appreciate this so much. So we can find you at catchyourBreath60.
CatchYourBreath60.com. And I'm on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and I'm pretty
Amazing.
popular on Facebook too.
I
So-
love it. Barbara, thank you so much for helping us understand this so much better now.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate that.
Stay well. Coming up after the break, Jillian Hendry will tell us about a holiday house tour you won't want to miss.